Again, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to this session of the AMR Corp. Unfortunately, we're having some challenges with interpretations. Our apologies for that to our colleagues, our Francophone colleagues, or who are joining the call. But we are working on addressing this as soon as possible. In the interim, for those of us who are waiting, we've got 1 minute before the session starts. Just a few announcements. Please ensure that you are actually muted when you join the session and during the session. The chat box is there, so at any point in time, you can put a comment or a question in the chat box, and we'll be very happy to come back and address it during our question and answer session. If you want any other information as well, we have facilitators there, either on ASLM membership or anything else. Please let us know. We'll be very happy to also provide that information for you. So just those few announcements. And like I said, as soon as we're able to get interpretation back online, we will let you know. So apologies again to all our Francophone colleagues. So looking at the time, or my time at least, it is 11 o'clock on the dot, so we are going to start this morning's session. And in this morning's session, we are going to be focusing on looking at activities to strengthen quality in the animal health sector. So there was a statistic when we announced this particular CORP session and we posted it on our forums. One of our colleagues put a statistic on one of the forums which says that 75 to 85% of all resistant pathogens or resistant strains have zoonotic origins. And so when it comes to AMR and AMR surveillance, the animal health sector is integral to our fight against AMR. Over the years, when we have looked at AMR surveillance or disease surveillance in general, we've tended to focus, as with a lot of laboratory system strengthening, on the human health sector. And in that process, the animal health sector and indeed the environment and food safety sector have all been maybe lost, I would say, or ignored in terms of capacity building, in terms of quality strengthening. But the recognition of the key role of animal health and other sectors in having an effective disease surveillance systems and in acknowledging the fact that a lot of these new pathogens or emerging pathogens, have zoonotic origins. We have moved towards the One Health approach, and the One Health approach is about strengthening capacity across all sectors in acknowledgement of the key role that each sector plays in disease surveillance overall. With that in mind, through the Fleming Fund, we have been supporting, ASLM and its partners have been supporting the strengthening of quality in the animal health sector across a range of activities. So through not just EQA Africa, where we are looking at the actual quality of the processes that take place in bacteriology, but through our other projects such as MAP and QUAS, where we're building workforce capacity or looking at data. This morning, we want to share some of the successes we have had to date in terms of strengthening the capacity in the animal health sector, and specifically to share the success from Kenya, where they've been able to develop a national quality manual for animal health. And this is a really key achievement because you don't see a lot of quality manuals for the animal health sector, let alone a national quality manual. So we're hoping that in today's talk, from our presenters can share with you what specifically Kenya did, what were their aims and objectives in terms of developing this quality manual, and how they see this strengthening their capacity as the animal health sector to contribute further to AMR surveillance in Kenya and the fight against AMR. And hopefully, through their sharing, be able to encourage other countries in terms of moving forward to do the same, to really strengthen the animal health sector in their settings. Okay, so thank you very much. Let's move straight away to our first presentation. And our first presenter is Dr. Bridget Mwasa. She's a veterinary, sorry, my apologies, Dr. Mary Romona Nyandani from the Kenya Veterinary Work with the Ministry of Agriculture and through the CVL. Dr. Romona is a holder of a Bachelor's of Veterinary Medicine degree and a Master of Science in Veterinary Science, and currently pursuing a doctorate study in veterinary epidemiology and economics. She currently heads the CVL, the Central Veterinary Laboratory, National Reference Lab, working at the Diagnostic Services Division of the DVS, and is in charge of coordination of antimicrobial resistance laboratory activities and biorisk management. Dr. Romona is a member of the National Antimicrobial Stewardship Interagency Committee and National AMR Secretariat, and is involved in the coordination of the implementation of the National Action Plan for Prevention and Containment of AMR. She's also an AMR Policy Fellow supported by the Fleming Fund Fellowship Scheme and a certified biorisk management trainer of trainers trained by the Sandia National Laboratories of the United States of America. So we're very pleased this morning to have Dr. Romona here to start our presentations and to give us a background of the role of the animal health sector in AMR surveillance. Thank you. Dr. Romona, please, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Beatrice. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good afternoon. So my presentation is on the role of animal health in AMR surveillance. Sorry, I will not have an active video because I think my internet is a bit unstable. So by name, I've been introduced from the Central Veterinary Laboratories. So I'll start off by having my next slide, which is basically an introduction. AMR is an emerging global health and global health security threat. And we all know that antimicrobials play a critical role in saving lives, not only for humans, but antimicrobials for therapeutics, for prophylactics, and for metaphylactics in the animal health world. And there are recent studies that have shown antimicrobial use in livestock involving around 228 countries was estimated at around 63,151 tons. And this is projected to increase by 67% by the year 2030. And the increase is because globally, we are also increasing the uptake of livestock protein. So we are increasing the intensification of livestock production. And that's why antimicrobials are also being used a lot in the agriculture sector. Agriculture sector, we use antibiotics for animal production, both for therapeutics and also non-therapeutic purposes. But globally, we are trying to reduce the non-therapeutic practices, uses of antimicrobials, specifically for growth promotion. And a number of countries, including Kenya, have banned the use of growth promoters in agriculture. Resistance, we know, against antimicrobials is a result of consequent selective pressure, and this is created mainly by use, abuse, or misuse. Why do we have a concern with regards to AMR? It's a growing awareness. There's growing awareness and commitment. We've created a lot of awareness as to what AMR is causing in the world. There is it's an increasing serious global public health because it results in untreatable infections and infections both in animals and in humans. It also results in prolonged healthcare, both in animals and in humans. Therefore, that's important. And over time, approximately, we are told by a paper done by O'Neill in 2016, that 700,000 people die due to AMR-related infections yearly. And it is estimated that by 2050, approximately 10 million people will be dying per year due to AMR-related complications. The reason why we also are concerned is because there's a desperation over the dry pipeline of developing new antimicrobial molecules. So because we don't have any new antimicrobials being developed, then we need to safeguard the few or the little that we have, so that we don't go to the post non-antibiotic era. Another reason why this is of concern is because of the economic burden of what AMR can cost the world. It is estimated that AMR is costing the world around $100 trillion, will cost the world around $100 trillion by 2050. To extrapolate this further, we have a paper from ADEI that estimates the economy, the global economy, to be affected annually due to AMR at $6 trillion. And there's also a possibility of increase in extreme poverty. And this was stipulated by World Bank in 2016. Extreme poverty will be the result of the effect of AMR in the agriculture sector, and this will negatively impact food security. So what is AMR? Just a brief on what AMR is. It's the inability of microorganisms to be inactivated or killed by the antimicrobials that have been able to kill it previously. It occurs in microorganisms because when they become unresponsive to medications that they were responding to initially. This is a natural phenomena, and it's a natural unstoppable phenomena, but because of the way we have been using or misusing or overusing antimicrobials, we accelerate these natural phenomena. And I'm sure most of us have heard of when microorganisms have become resistant to more than maybe 2 or 3 antimicrobials, we have heard of what we refer to as superbugs. So, and we have superbugs both in the livestock sector and in the human sector. So this slide just shows the main drivers that contribute to AMR, how we use antimicrobials, or how we may not use them properly and accelerate the aspect of developing resistance. So we use antimicrobials after surgeries, what we call dry cow therapy, during transportation, before and after transportation. We use antimicrobials so as to slow down the growth of the commensals because of the stress of transportation. Then when we have potential outbreaks, we use antimicrobials, and I've talked about stressful conditions. Initially, I had also mentioned that we may use antimicrobials as growth promoters, and this is one also a driver of antimicrobial resistance. My next slide just shows a schematic illustration of the integrated ecosystem of how AMR is transferred or spread between the three main focus areas in our AMR surveillance globally. So look at the human health, how human health, we have therapeutic use, we have the hospital use of antimicrobials, the community. And if we develop resistance, this can actually move either to animals, can also be transferred to the environment. The same thing would happen when we use antimicrobials in the animal health sector. We can transfer resistant bacteria by direct contact or through food. At the same time, we can also transfer resistant pathogens to the environment, maybe through urine or through voided in feces, or resistant bacteria running off, spread to the environment through normal runoff. And at the same time, in the pharmaceutical area, where antimicrobials are manufactured, if we don't dispose of our antibiotics properly in the environment, then we can also develop resistant pathogens in the environment. So that's schematic illustration just shows how we are all interrelated: animal health, human health, the environment, and the pharmaceutical industry. So what have we been doing in Kenya? We have developed our AMR national policy and our national action plan based on the global action plan that many countries actually adopted. And we also have 5 objectives as laid out in the global action plan, which we are implementing. I won't go into the details of that, just to show you what we are doing as a country. These 2 documents were developed using a One Health approach, with the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Health being the leaders in running this. When we come to surveillance, our AMR policy and NAP calls for an integrated implementation of an integrated surveillance system for AMR. And we're looking at surveillance of bacteria that is isolated from humans, from food animals, and from food, mainly of animal origin, and from the environment. And the reason for this and why animal health is important is because surveillance in animal health is very critical to enable us fill the knowledge gap that we currently have. We don't have a lot of data with regards to AMR in animal health. And now when we get this data, the data we provide will be necessary for us to be able to conduct risk analysis with regards to the AMR pathogens. And we've heard about the zoonotic potential of pathogens, where we have 75% of all zoonotic pathogens emanating from animal health. So the same case, there's some studies that show that the AMR pathogens, most of them may also have zoonotic potential. So it's very critical for us to be able to carry out AMR surveillance in animal health to feed into the knowledge gap, so that to know how we can now address the AMR issue. Surveillance would provide basis for policy recommendations. And for us in Kenya, we have a devolved system. So we work both with the national government, collaborating with the county government to be able to implement a national integrated AMR surveillance system, which is actually underway. We have a plan for the agriculture sector, a surveillance plan for the agriculture sector, which has outlined how our system will be operationalized. And what we have considered in our plan is the priorities of the public health sector, so that the similar pathogens that the health sector is looking at, we in the agriculture sector, or specifically us in the animal health sector, are also looking at the priority pathogens. So I'll just give you a snapshot of what we have been able to do as we are implementing our national action plan. We have, based on the objectives of the policy and the national action plan. So under awareness, we have been able to create a communication strategy using a One Health approach. We have developed information, education, and communication materials, and as you can see some of them on the slide. And we share this so that we can create awareness of AMR. Under surveillance, we were able to come up with a plan, as I mentioned earlier. We piloted the plan in 2019 in around 34 farms, one slaughterhouse, and 1 hatchery. I forgot to mention that we prioritize the poultry value chain and the poultry sector, because from studies, it has been shown that that's where most antibiotics are used in Kenya. The next value chain is the dairy farms, the dairy industry. So currently, we're actually working in the poultry value chain. What we did is we collected food samples, environmental swabs, local swabs, oropharyngeal swabs, fecal swabs, meat swabs, egg contents, and these were analyzed. Then in 2021, supported by Fleming Fund, we now went full-blown to carry out active surveillance, where we sampled 500 poultry farms in 15 different counties. This is still ongoing because we have not yet finished our Fleming Fund surveillance program. And at the same time, we also collected data on antimicrobial use from the same farmers where we collected the samples. Under surveillance, just giving you a snapshot of what we've been able to do, we decided to select our reference lab on health, and CVL, where I'm seated, that's the reference laboratory for animal health. We created a lab for AMR surveillance on health side. And we have 8 others that are supported by other partners. For animal health, we have 6 sites, and we have supported by food and agriculture organizations. And from around 2019, we have had refurbishment of our labs, equipment of our labs to be able to carry out surveillance. And the central laboratory, central veterinary laboratories has been fully equipped with even automated equipment to be able to carry out automated culture and automated ASTs, that is antimicrobial susceptibility testing. So this slide just shows you where our sites are. So for animal health, you can see the blue is where our farmers, where we collected samples from our farmers. The triangles just indicate where our laboratories are. And what we agreed together so that we can have some data from both animal and human health is that where we have human health sites, you can see the ones in red. We also have animal health data collected and animal health samples collected so that we are able now to compare data from human health and data from animal health. The next slide just shows you how we have planned to manage our data from the central veterinary labs. We have regional labs outside of Nairobi, where we get samples, we get data, we get samples, and we also get data. We get from other sites like the University of Nairobi, the other laboratories from fisheries, from our research organizations. Then all of them feed into the central veterinary laboratories. From here, when all the samples have been processed, the data is shared with our veterinary epidemiology and economics section that analyzes the data and sends the data now to our central data warehouse, which is housed at the National Public Health Laboratories. And then this is all shared now with the Technical Working Group for AMR Surveillance, which is under the National Antimicrobial Stewardship Interagency Committee. Just to show you how our data is handled, we use a lab information management system called the CLAB for Africa for animal health. Sorry. So we use CLAB for animal health, and then we use Labware for human health. All this data ends up at the central data warehouse. Then everything is collated, and now that can be shared with the technical working group for AMR. Just to show you what we've been doing, training of our staff in diagnostics, and state-of-the-art equipment of our laboratories. Renovations, all the regional labs were renovated using the Fleming Fund grant. So you can see some of the areas where renovations was done. So currently we have all the sites properly renovated and properly equipped to be able now to support AMR surveillance. We've also been supported by ASLM and EQ Africa towards quality assurance and quality control of our laboratory testing. And I'll not go into details of this. Bridget will discuss this more in detail. So the next slide, I think this is just a repetition of how our data is, our AMR data flows from the laboratories all the way to the National Public Health Laboratory, where the central data warehouse is. So I won't repeat that. I mentioned that we also collected data on antimicrobial use, and This slide just shows you the kind of results that we got on, it's the poultry sector. So an example is you can see antibiotic combinations that are used in poultry. 38% of that, most of it is the doxycycline or tylosin. When we look at single antibiotic preparations, the majority of the drugs that are used is oxytetracycline. And you can see that the antimicrobials, the antibiotics that we use in animals are the same antimicrobials that are used in humans. That's why it is very important for us to carry out surveillance in animal health. Then this last slide also just shows you some studies that have been done to figure out what kind of antimicrobials you get from food. And from these studies, you can see these are slaughterhouse-based or a live bird market, where E. coli and coliforms and other enterics were discovered in the meat value chain. And some of these pathogens are have actually been shown to have resistant genes. So what are our challenges and lessons learned from the work that we've been doing so far with regards to AMR? Is that we need to come up with an economic case so that we are able to invest properly in AMR. We need there's inadequate awareness by our leaders on the impact of AMR, and we can only create that awareness when we have data. That's why we need surveillance. We have inadequate resources to support AMR surveillance, and I think this it's a global issue because AMR currently is a silent problem. It's not overt. And another challenge is suboptimal stakeholder engagement and coordination. So what have we learned? That it's all about data, and how we package that data is very important. We need political support. We need to be able to define AMR burden in the agriculture sector in the country. We also need to see how multi-sectoral approaches can work best, because AMR is not a one sector problem. It affects many. We need to develop realistic work and sustainability plans. And of course, resources are crucial. Workforce resources are crucial to be able to support the workforce for AMR and also to support funding for AMR. Thank you very much. I'd like to acknowledge the Ministry of Agriculture, SLM, EQA Africa, FAO, and the Fleming Fund. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that very insightful presentation, Dr. Ramona. I really liked the schematic where we showed how human health and animal health sectors are really interlinked when it comes to AMR surveillance. And it's also great to see the work that is going on in Kenya. Obviously, there seems to be a lot going on, and the challenges you highlighted, I think, are key challenges that across all the countries you're working with, we can identify are issues that need to be addressed if we hope to really win the fight against AMR. So thank you for that. We will now move to a presentation from Dr. Bridget Mwasa, who is a veterinarian at the Directorate of Veterinary Services in Kenya. She serves as the quality manager and head of the biology and molecular biology laboratories at the Central Veterinary Laboratories, the National Veterinary Reference Laboratory in Kenya, for all livestock diseases except for foot and mouth disease. Dr. Mwasa has a PhD in developmental biology, jointly done between the University of Edinburgh and Scotland's Rural College in the UK. She also holds a Bachelor of Veterinary Medicine degree and an MSc in Veterinary Clinical Studies. She has an interest in laboratory management systems with a focus on laboratory information management systems and data management. So we are very pleased to have Dr. Mwasa this morning to talk about the development of the National Quality Manual and what this means for quality in the animal health sector in Kenya and how this will impact on AMR surveillance in Kenya. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Mwasa.
Thank you, Beatrice, and I'm glad to be here today. As Beatrice has said, my name is Dr. Bridget Mwasa. So really, I'm going to be picking my presentation from where Dr. Ramona has left. And for us, for me, really is to focus on, our path to accreditation at the Central Veterinary Laboratories, and, touch on, what are the lessons we've learned along the way and some of the best practices, and maybe some of the not so good, practices, the things that we've learned along the way. And, to sort of like bring it together, I would just kind of like to touch on towards the end on what this path to accreditation and getting, accreditation and having a quality manual and policy in place is going to contribute in the fight towards AMR. So please join me in this presentation. So let me give you a brief overview. So the Central Veterinary Laboratories falls under the Directorate of Veterinary Services. So this is the veterinary authority in Kenya that is responsible for safeguarding human and animal health. So I'll spend the next 2 slides just kind of like showing you a structure of the Directorate of Veterinary Services and how the labs fall into place, which becomes important when we talk about our plan on how we went towards getting accreditation. So like I said, the Directorate of Veterinary Services, which I will refer to as the DVS, has 4 divisions. The one highlighted in blue is the Diagnostic Services and Efficacy Trial Centers. So this is where the laboratories are housed. So under the Diagnostic Services, we have 5 sections. And then under those, we have the third one is the National Reference Laboratories. So in Kenya, we have 2 national reference laboratories. One of them is the Central Vet Laboratories. I'll refer to as CVL from now on. And then we have the Foot and Mouth Laboratory, which is a biosafety level 3 laboratory. So it's important to be able to separate FMD activities from all other activities from a biorisk point of view. So we also, so both CVL and FMD are based in the capital city of Kenya, so which is close to the central region, and Kenya is a vast country. So in order for us to be able to serve the whole country, we have regional veterinary laboratories. So these are strategically placed in most of the areas where we have livestock farmers all over Kenya. So we have 6 of those. So it's Nakuru, which is in the Rift Valley, Karatina, which is in central, Garissa, which is in the northeastish. We have Mariakani, which is in the southeast, the coast region. We have Kericho, again in Rift Valley, and Eldoret in the same. So these are high potential areas where you tend to have a lot of farmers. So the purpose of this slide is to show you our laboratory network, and it becomes important when we talk about how we went about getting accreditation. Okay, so to the Central Veterinary Laboratory. So I will focus the bulk of this presentation here because this is where I'm based and I serve as a quality manager there. So the CVL is based in the capital city of Kenya, which is in Nairobi, and it's based just off the city because that's where we get a huge tract of land and we're able to carry out our activities without interacting with the community that much. So the CVL is laboratories at the end. So it's a collection of 7 laboratories. We have the transfer and receiving facility, a lab. We have pathology, we have bacteriology, virology, molecular, acarology, analytical chemistry, and food safety lab. So the name is actually quite intuitive. So TRF is the one that's not a full-fledged lab, but what it does, TRF is the transfer and receiving facility. So what happens there is all samples are received through there and dispatched to the appropriate lab for testing, and all reports also are channeled out of there. So that allows us to be able to separate our activities. So the picture you see there is one of the serology lab in the virology lab. So just to give you a brief history lesson on our path to accreditation. So, I mean, it's 2022, but we started this journey about 10 years ago in 2012. So we had a lot of ambition. We were psyched. We went all in, trained a lot. We started with the CVL because it's a national reference lab, it carries out a lot of tests. So we started there, trained a lot of implementers, we trained auditors, we were set to go. But I mean, like we all know, government departments are highly influenced by, the government of the day and the motivation. So, we're struggling a bit all the way to about 2015, trying to do a few activities here and there. Well, we're doing some restructuring of the management, and sadly, we kind of like fell off the wayside a little bit. So the process a little bit fizzled out, but we didn't lose the knowledge that we had. 6 years from the time we started in about 2018, we decided this was something that we really wanted to pursue. So one of the things that worked in our favor is, as a government, we usually sign performance contracts at every level up to the very senior management level in the ministry. One of the things that we did was include accreditation as one of our performance contracting activity. So now the pressure was coming from the top. The principal secretary had signed that, I'm going to get one of my labs accredited within this time. So the pressure was on. So having involvement from the top management was quite critical for us because, his job is on the line. He has to be able to, provide the resources, the finances, and the goodwill for us to continue. So in 2018, around that time when we started, it took us about a year until we got the accreditation in around the end of 2019. But at that time, the CVL, which is like I said, has a lot of the tests, was undergoing some refurbishment. Some of our buildings were about 50, 60 years old, and we needed to do a complete overhaul. So like most of you are aware, we couldn't really progress with accreditation when we are on that level. So CVL decided to step aside, but two of our labs, FMD, which is a national reference lab, and RVIL, which is a regional veterinary investigation lab in Kericho, were able to get 2 tests accredited, which was a sandwich ELISA and diagnosis of Jones disease by Zell-Nielsen staining. So, so since then, in 2019, we got our first accreditation, and we're the only veterinary laboratory accredited to 17025 and OIE in Kenya. So now that we had this, this were only 2 tests. We realized it wasn't very efficient, to just have big labs with multiple tests, but only have 1 test in each lab accredited. This was not very useful. And then we're slowly starting to work on the national and the regional labs as a team. So it was important to expand the scope. So starting around 2021, we had finished the renovation in CVL, and we decided we wanted, during the surveillance visit for accreditation, we wanted to expand the scope. We wanted to include as many tests from CVL into this process. But, we started around 2020, but then the pandemic hit and, we kind of had to make do. So when the pandemic hit, this time, we didn't want to have an excuse of why we can't go ahead with accreditation. So we decided, what, we'll make lemonade out of this lemons that we have been given. So we decided we will do our best, have, sometimes we were able to have on-site mentorships when, when we thought the pandemic was over. And when we had those chances, we tried to pick out our areas of weakness and have trainings on those, such as risk analysis, CAPA. We had a combination of, group trainings and, one-on-one on the areas that we were weak. And to pandemic style, we had to have a lot of our virtual mentorship series. So we had like a weekly Zoom meeting where we'd go through one of the procedures that we wanted to work on. And then we also have like WhatsApp groups, emails. It was a lot. I think people really got tired of getting emails from the quality manager, and I'm glad, that they kept on. So, with those, we were able to really move and do a lot. And then when things again started opening up, so we started having like offsite meetings. You realize sometimes it can be quite difficult when you're working on, a lot of procedures and you're in different offices to really push some things along. So what we do, we draft procedures in our offices and then, have a session where we'd go out of town, sit and actually validate those procedures, go through them without any interruption. And in a few days, we were able to come up with procedures that could be used across all the labs, the DVS laboratories. For us, again, it was important to have our management review meetings, both at the high level and both at the laboratory levels. This is to always make sure that, management at every level, the finance, the purchasing, the accounts, were all involved in this, and they understood the value of us getting accreditation. So that really helped us a lot. And the big thing for us was really where we had sort of failed before the first attempt was we didn't have proper documentation. So we said this time we wanted to go big and we wanted to go with proper documentation. So the first time when we had our attempt at accreditation and we had a small quality manual that was only used at the 2 sites, but we wanted all the labs to read from the same page now going forward. So we had, a big celebration, which ASLM kindly supported, and we launched our quality manual. And in tandem, we launched a strategic plan. So now all the players were now aware of what we want to do and where we want to be. So that was part of documentation, and it was really critical for us to have to put that in place so we could proceed. So to really, bring this together, our accrediting body in Kenya is called KENAS. So we had a scheduled assessment on the 7th, between the 7th and 9th of March. And then, we had put in a lot of work, prepared a lot, pushed we had applied for an expansion of scope for more than about 80% of the procedures that we do at the central vet laboratories. And we were able to, have a successful, assessment, and, we're just waiting for, the final, finalization from KENAS from that. But though I'm impressed with the progress that we've been able to make from 2018 to now. And what worked for us is we decided that we wanted to do this as a national vet laboratories. We even rebranded now, and we're now called the National Vet Laboratories, involving all the laboratories that are under the Directorate of Vet Services. So now just to switch gears a little bit into how this plays into AMR. So during the process, we were able to get 19 procedures that relate to culture and had a direct impact on AMR activities accredited. So, yes, we had a successful, assessment from KENAS, but then now the push for actually going to this was AMR. So how does AMR surveillance gain from this accreditation? And we kind of remind ourselves from, the OIE Terrestrial Animal Health Code, which is like surveillance of antimicrobial resistance and monitoring the prevalence of and trends in resistance in bacteria from animals, food, environment, and humans constitutes a critical part of animal health and food safety strategies aimed at limiting the spread of antimicrobial resistance and optimizing the choice of antimicrobial agents used in therapy. Sorry, that was quite, a mouthful, but really, survey for you to be able to say whether you have resistance or not, the labs are the core of it. And this surveillance data is what is going to be able to give you, to guide policy, what policies that you need to be able to make. So the labs are at the core of it. So getting accreditation, what it did for us as AMR was, it streamlined our procedures. Remember now we were CVL, those, FMD doesn't do AMR work, but we were CVL and the regional labs. We were all doing culture and we're all, doing AMR work, but we were not reading from, the same scripts. So even when we came to summarizing data from, let's say, just passive surveillance, it was quite difficult because yes, you have this process of following through to identify a bacteria, but the way you enter the data is difficult for you to collate the data and present it. So how, going through a quality management system was beneficial for us is we decided as the National Vet Laboratories, we're going to streamline our procedures. So all the culture labs, we started sitting down and coming up with, internationally recognized and agreed on standards of doing culture and sensitivity. So what that does for us is it allows us to harmonize, the results that we are getting. We're able to harmonize our data entry, and we're now able to push this data into a central database. So now it provides information for making policy decisions and changes. So the other thing that we gained from, going through this process was, for you to get accredited, you need to be involved in an EQA program. And for us, what that has done for us is, even as we produce this data on, AMR, we're saying this is resistant, we can stand by our results because we've been checked by an external body. We're continuously, trying to improve our quality, and we're able to score above. The least we scored was 98% in the 2 PTs that we're involved in. So being able to authoritatively stand on the quality of your data was important for us. And like I said, this hasn't been without its challenges. It sounds like it's been very easy, but it's 2022 and we started 10 years ago, fell along the wayside. Here we are now. The major thing has been, budgeting. What we worry about now is budgeting for sustained accreditation. And like I said, we've tried to work with the management from every step. We invited senior management when we were launching our quality manual and strategic plans, so that they can buy into the process. They understand the benefit of having, accredited labs in their system, so that they can actually now advocate for us when money is being allocated to projects. The big thing for us was equipment servicing. The government likes to hold old equipment. So we really had to go through our catalog, see what equipment we have, what we're able to service, and equipment servicing is quite an expensive venture. So that's, one of the challenges we're going to have to face with. And of course, adequate capacity building of our human resource. Laboratories tend to be very dynamic. People tend to, always want to go further studies, greener pastures. So we always have to keep up with our training and, making sure that we have adequate staff so that we don't fall behind. Consistent supplies of reagents and consumables. And then, like I said, the joint and seamless approach to GMS implementation across the tiered management systems. So now we feel like we have a leg into, bringing all the national veterinary labs together. Again, this could not have happened without the generous support of our partners, especially SLM and EQA Africa, because we had a lot of online trainings for staff, because trainings can be quite an expensive venture, especially if you're trying to put people together, pay accommodation and all that. So having partners coming and even offer online trainings, so all of our staff were able to get pretty much to the same page. That was really critical for us. Important, even having SLM provided a mentor for us who, sat down, we could sit, draw things with, learn from their best practices. So that was really, important for us. And of course, FAO has been a partner since, we started, and just working with us. Even this week, we're conducting an auditors training courtesy of FAO. It's these things that, having good relationships with our partners has what has taken us to the next level. Again, thank you very much for your attention, and Beatrice, I take it back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Bridget, and also thank you very much to Dr. Ramona. 2 very insightful presentations, and we would like to congratulate Kenya again for the success that you have made, or the advancements you have made with quality management systems in the animal health sector. So we have about 12 minutes, according to my clock, where we can take some questions, some comments. So please feel free to either raise your hand and we will select you, or please put your question in the chat box and we'll be happy to address it to the presenters. So as we're waiting for people to maybe post their questions and comments, just a question for Dr. Ramona and Dr. Mwasa, and one of you can feel free to answer these questions in terms of the fact that, how do you now foresee, now the CVL itself is accredited, and we congratulate you on that achievement. What is the plan from the National Veterinary Services perspective in terms of how we now ensure the implementation of these standards across the network. So we now have the National Quality Manual, we have supporting documents, supporting standard operating procedures. Is there a plan in place of how we're going to ensure that there is implementation throughout the veterinary, the laboratory network of the veterinary services, and what support is being offered either at the national level or through partners to support this? Thank you.
Okay, maybe, thank you, Beatrice. I'll answer, then if Bridget has extra words to add, then she can add. Yes, we do have a plan. Well, let me start with what we foresee. You know, as they say, when you're up there, the only way you can come is down. So once we get accreditation, we really need to guard our accreditation. So we have put plans in place to ensure that we maintain our accreditation as CVL. And as Bridget has said, we have involved all our top management, because accreditation and running an accredited lab is an expensive affair. So we need the support from top management. We need budgetary allocations that are sufficient for the labs to run. We also need to ensure that we have a workforce that is well trained and well maintained, because at some point, we have people leaving, maybe for greener pastures or otherwise. So with the support of our top management, we hope that we have planned on how we are going to maintain our accreditation and the accreditation of the CVL. Other than that, we also plan to further build CVL to be able to be an EQA provider for the other regional labs that we have in animal health. So going forth, I think we already have discussed with some of our partners, and I hope SLM will be one of them, so that we can build the level of CVL. We already have, we're already talking with our counterpart in the Ministry of Health, who already are able to provide the EQA for bacterial culture and for AST. So with them, like our big brother, then we can borrow a leaf and see how, us as CVL and in the animal health, we could also now build our capacity to be able now to support the regional labs. Thank you very much. I don't know if Bridget has additional comments on this.
Maybe just one additional point. I mean, like Ramona has said, looking at the next steps is what is important for us. And now, like you asked, how to expand to the regional labs. One of the things that really worked for us was the mentorship. Being able to spend days at a time in one site, just to support. So what we've been able to do is we're trying to build up a group of mentors from within the system, so that we can be able to support these other sites that can be a bit far off. So we feel like the mentorship that we got from ASLM was really key and critical to taking us from one step to the other. And we want to apply the same models for the other laboratories.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nyanjani and Dr. Mwasa. Dr. Pikimoto, please go ahead with your question.
Yeah, thank you very much, Beatrice, for giving me the opportunity. I'm Dr. Bashir Boy Kikimoto. I know Moto in Swahili is fire, but I'm not fire. I'm very impressed about the success you have made so far. And I'm also glad to say that the National Food Laboratory in Ghana is also trying to follow your steps. But I wanted to get experience from you. This journey is not an easy journey. You need to put in a lot of efforts, from capacity building to mentorship, as all that you are saying. But at the quarterly management review meetings, you've been able to bring the accountants, the directors, and all that. I wanted to learn from you your approach for them to buy into your support after the accreditation. Budgetary-wise, how were you able to convince them to understand these things? Because it looks like in Africa, when something is not immediate, like you have headache or diarrhea, people don't actually care. AMR takes time to manifest. So I wanted to learn from you so that me too, at the head of the National Food Laboratory in Ghana, in charge of terrestrial and aquatic animals, I want to learn from you so that maybe I can also adopt your method, because I'm very proud about your success. Thank you very much.
So, Dr. Mwasa, could you take that question, please?
Yes. So, like I said, one of the ways that really worked for us, that was almost like the game changer for us, is I mentioned the system of performance contracting. It's almost like, you know, at the beginning of the year, you put your work plans, you commit, this is what this ministry is going to achieve in this set time. So including that you're going to have X number of tests accredited. And, you know, now the principal secretary is held to that, you know, and it tends to be a very serious commitment. That alone, the top management being held to that, it cascades down to everyone, because he's not the one who's actually going to be doing the accreditation. So it cascades to all of our work plans. And for us to do this, we need commitment of, you know, funding. So that, I feel like, what was one of the game changers that we have, and having the you know, the top man saying, you know what, finance, account, who reports to him, you know, HR, you all have to be present in the management review meeting. And actually the principal secretary chairs the management review meetings. We gave him that responsibility. That has really helped us a lot. So if there's a similar system in Ghana where the top holder of the top job in the ministry, or whoever is your management institution, can sort of take some of the responsibility and say, look, this is important for us to even be able to give quality results. So I want my labs to be able to be accredited. That is a game changer. And he was, when we had the launch of the quality manual, it was a really, we're able to exceed, by a huge margin. We'd only said we're going to get about 5 or 6 tests accredited. We gave him, more than 10 times that. So that, was a really big thing for them, and can help in the Ghana situation as well.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mwasa. And I think that a lot of us, and that is what we're really hoping that we can encourage with your successes, and to learn your strategies and whether those same strategies are feasible and workable in our own scenarios. There is a question from Goodwin from CVL Dar es Salaam, and he's asking, are you sharing AMR data into HUNET or GLASS or OIE? So I don't know who wants to take that question, please, Dr. Mwasa or Dr. Nyanjani.
Thank you, Beatrice. I think I'll take that question. Thank you, Godwin, for the question. So currently, the only data we share with the OIE is the antimicrobial use data. As yet, HUNET and GLASS have not yet included the provisions for us to be able to share animal health data with regards to AMR. But most of our staff have been trained in HUNET. But we're still waiting. I think there's some discussion still ongoing on how the GLASS can be configured so that One Health data can actually end up in being shared through GLASS. So currently, as Kenya, what we've been able to do is only share human health AMR data through GLASS. Thank you.
And then there's a question from Isaac, and he's asking, he says, can you please point out some zoonotic challenges in AMR in other animals and poultry hosts, and the way you go around solving these challenges? So Dr. Nyanjani or Dr. Mwasa?
Okay, thank you, Isaac. I would have asked for more clarification, but let me try. Mm-hmm. I think what I can talk about the zoonotic pathogens that we have in relation to AMR is Campylobacter jejuni. Actually, we have one of our staff who's carrying out a study, and they isolated Campylobacter in poultry. As yet, I cannot tell what we have done so far to address that challenge. But with regards to food safety, because we have both animal veterinary public health, and then the human public health, who are involved in ensuring that the food that ends up for human consumption is properly inspected to ensure that we do not get or we do not transfer zoonotic pathogens specifically through food of animal origin. I don't know if I've answered that. I think, yeah, that's what we've done.
And if we get any specifics from Isaac, we'll be very happy to pass it on to you and get him a more specific answer. But I would just like to say we've come up to the end of the session. Thank you very much to Dr. Ramona and Dr. Bridget for those really great presentations. I think everybody in the chat box is agreeing that very insightful, very encouraging presentations also for other countries who are also trying to achieve this milestone. And even in the human sector, we know this is not an easy feat. And therefore, to achieve this in the animal sector is definitely a really great achievement. So we look forward to seeing the advancements, the further advancements that are done in Kenya. And we look forward to working with you further to ensure that we can scale down these achievements throughout the whole animal health laboratory network in Kenya and in other countries too. And with that, would like to say thank you to everybody who attended this session. Thank you for your participation. As usual, the resources, the presentations in PDF and the recordings will be shared and you will be sent the link. If you have any questions or any other queries that you would like to put to the presenters, feel free to send us an email or to put the questions on our forums if you're part of our forum, and we'll be very happy to pass them on to the presenters and send the answers back to you. And then in the interim, we'll also encourage everyone, just so that you keep up to date with all the great work that ASLM is doing, please apply on our website to become a member of ASLM. It's free. And as you can see, there's a lot of educational and other activities that we do, which help us to grow in our professions. And we look forward to meeting again at our next session. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good day.